Sup guys, welcome to Remax, episode 55, October 6, 2015. Beastie Cutie as a friend coming over to his place with his webcam, so for the time being it's going to be a black window. Actually, I should probably find a Google image of him. But yeah, so he doesn't have a webcam for now. But yeah, welcome to Remax. We're going to be talking about StarCraft, the latest Legacy of the Void patch, the GSL final. Beastie Cutie made a pretty good blog about why Terran sucks. Now, obviously, Moro probably doesn't think that way since he switched to Protoss. But anyway, we'll talk about it later. Let's get with the intros. Huck, where have you been? What have you been up to, my man?
Last week or so I've taken it off pretty much. Been, Jesus, has it been a week since the last episode? I guess a little bit less. Just been chilling. Actually started playing again yesterday. That's it, I guess. Got a dentist appointment later. Gonna get my hair cut at some point. I can't remember what day. I gotta actually check that. But yeah, not much.
Do you go to a barber or do you go to a girl to get your hair cut?
A gay man cuts my hair.
Really?
Yes.
Is he the one that gives you like suggestions and improvements?
No, this is all me. I actually think he's closeted. I'm gonna investigate the next time I'm there, because I'm pretty sure he's gay, but he like keeps saying he'd be like casually like, oh yeah, me and my girlfriend like to do that as well. But he's like very flamboyant and he cuts hair, and I don't know, I don't know if I'm being like bigoted or he's just like a very eccentric straight man. But I'm gonna bring my gay brother to detect whether he is gay or not, because I've been wondering. I've been going to this guy for like a couple months, and I'm very curious if he's gay or not. So he seems gay, but he keeps saying like his girlfriend. So
you enjoyed the mystery.
Well, no, I want to solve the mystery. There's only one way to find out.
Is that why you keep going back to him to make sure to find out?
No, he cuts. He's a good haircutter.
Oh, okay.
You know? He's good at his job.
What about you, Maro?
The usual, just screaming a lot and screaming a lot.
What about your internet problem? What happened there?
Oh yeah, but that's been going on for like over a month. So
yeah, but I thought Sweden was like one of the best country for internet.
Yeah.
Aren't you like a little bit disappointed in your countrymen?
Yeah, I'm actually very disappointed. I'm thinking about moving out of Sweden because of that. No, not really, but I'm probably gonna end up changing internet provider because it's like really been hurting my streaming and all that. But otherwise, I'm doing great.
Nice, nice. What about you, Theo? What have you been up to? Did you go to the DreamHack?
I did not go to DreamHack. Well, I've been up to streaming. I've been streaming quite a lot this past week. Not as much as tomorrow. That's as far as that goes. I've been doing my treadmill almost, if not longer than my practice, 2 hours a day, plus minus, hoping for the best for my leg, and that's basically it. I've not been to any barber. I cut my own hand.
Wait, you cut your own end?
Yeah, my own hand.
How?
I'll probably do that too.
Wait. How did that happen?
How that happened? It just kind of happened, you know.
Okay, you were like cutting some vegetables?
Or if I cut my hand?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't cut my hand.
Oh. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Theo, for that intro. What about you, Beastie? What have you been up to?
Wait, can you guys see me?
Yes, yes. Yes,
okay,
we can see you.
So, not much. I've just been practicing. I went to ISF qualifiers like 3 days ago.
For
Serbia.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Finished that, so I'm going to Korea in December to play in
nice.
that. Not much, just practicing playing online stuff, and that's it.
It was Heart of the Swarm, right?
Yes, but it will be played in Legacy from what I know in Korea.
What the hell? Well, I guess it
Yeah.
makes sense if it's in December. You know what? I saw Madeli's tweet today. She qualified for Sweden, and they took out the female tournament, so now she's not going anywhere. I don't know why I'm laughing. I mean, it's a very unfortunate turn of events, but yeah, ISF is a little bit weird like that. They don't even have qualifiers for Canada. Get screwed, Huck. Can't go.
Yeah, I don't know how they pick countries for that.
What? I don't even know what you're talking about.
ISF. You know the thing
So-
Xenocider beat Wellmu in, and he made $10,000.
No. Yeah.
It's like WCG.
Yeah, it's a very similar concept. Oh, as for myself, not much. I actually got a massage today. It was great. My hands and my forearms had a lot of tension, so that was great.
How much did you pay?
It's $90 for 90 minutes. It's pretty expensive.
Oh, no, that's not bad. I was looking at, because I'm supposed to be going to one for my friend's birthday soon, and it's like a spa resort thing. They want, it's something ridiculous, like 30 minutes, $100.
Jesus
60 minutes,
Christ.
150 or something. So I'm thinking of going to like Chinatown or Koreatown and getting one of those massages, since I know Asians know how to massage well.
Yeah, I mean, like
You know what I'm saying, Desron?
what I was gonna say is, it's really important when you have an office job or like a very physical job to get massages because they release a lot of tension. Like, God damn it! Stop looking at me with that face. What the fuck? But anyway, I'd recommend it to anyone. And after you get a massage, it's really important to drink a lot of water because everything is flowing, and it has a nice circle. Ah, Jesus! All right. Let's get into the patch notes. Legacy of the Void, balance patch, October 2nd. That was on Friday. It was a day. Why is there a penis in the Google Doc? Moral.
Well, why do you just assume it's me?
Alright, anyway. Legacy of the Void, balance patch, October 2nd. That was a day after we did our last episode. And yeah, so they nerfed Chrono Boost, they nerfed the Adept. Let's just talk about that for a second. Theo, do you think the Adept, do you think the nerf was too big?
I'm not sure it's a nerf yet. Of course, it's a nerf to the early game, but you know, looking at it overall, I'm not sure it's a nerf. I think Terran can open what they want to open. You know, considering the lack of Warp Prism Adept strength. I think versus Zerg, it's quite difficult to do those very early Adept harass timings that I would argue was kind of necessary for Protoss to do in the matchup to, you know, establish a reasonable position. So considering that Protoss has now less options in the first 5 minutes of the game, I think versus Zerg, it's a nerf for sure, the Adept in general.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Terran, I'm not sure yet. Laura and I, we tried to do some math, not go too much in depth with that. We tried to do the math with the numbers, how much the attack speed upgrade means as opposed to the shield upgrade. And if you know, take into consideration that now that they have at best 60 shields, EMP does less and stuff like that, for TVP it's interesting for sure. And of course, in PvP, I mean, they have always been annoying for harass, and now you can, you know, deal a little bit better with them with just overcharge and stalkers, so you don't necessarily feel that you have to rush too many of your own adepts to deal with adepts. So overall, I think the new adept is doing, considering it's a health nerf, I think it's doing better than I expected, and I'm happy to see that it's now going towards a DPS role-ish, although, like I said, not too sure it's too strong. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Moral, like the attack speed upgrade. How do you like it? You think it's good? You think it serves a good purpose? Are you satisfied with it?
Yeah, I'm super thrilled. Like all of these suggestions or all of these things that they did have been suggestions of my own, what they should have done with the Adept, and they have done a lot of the things that I suggested. Not like everything, but like it has a new role in every matchup. I feel, you know, being a DPS unit, and like I absolutely love it. The new Adept, I think it was a great change.
Okay. Chris, anything to add to that?
I don't know. I feel like, especially when I'm talking to other Protoss players, I don't know if the Adept is so useful anymore. It's never used in PvP. PvT, most top level Protoss players now are going Blink Stalker and Disruptor or not Adepts. And other gateway combination units plus Disruptor or trying to get to Storm or just going to Air Toss. And then PVZ almost exclusively, it's like get to Air Toss and just ignore the Adept. So I obviously agree that something needed to change with the Adept. And I think what they did was a step in the right direction. But now it almost feels like the Adept is not really useful in any way, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
That's an interesting take on it.
Yes, like I wanna talk about that. Like in PvP, like I since I've been playing Protoss, like Adept had a very like interesting role in the army composition. Like Stalkers would be great, but as soon as you added a few Adepts, then they would Adepts would have a great tanking role. So they would be very cool in that situation. And then you could get like Adept Immortal or like Adept Archon, and it would like be like a very strong army straight up. But right now, since the Adept is not as strong anymore, you end up seeing a lot more Blink Stalkers in the mid game. But I still think that like Adepts, if you have a few of them in a Blink war, then they're still gonna provide that the tanking that you so much want. So I still think the unit has a role. It's just not as much anymore. But I still think it was a good change.
Okay. They also nerfed the chrono boost, but they nerf every macro mechanic. Beastie, have you made much of the Ravens ever since they buffed them last week?
No.
No.
Ravens have like no place in Legacy.
Oh.
So the problem with Raven is they were used in HOTS because you can camp. The game is a lot slower. You can make them on 4 bases. In Legacy, you expand a lot faster. Maybe like in 6 months, people will figure out when to make Ravens, but they got nerfed over time. So they're supposed to be this like unit you can use throughout the game because the turrets are like good for in the early game. They don't last as much. They do more damage, and the PDD is nerfed. Seeker missile is complete garbage, so there's no point like keeping Ravens in the late game and then massing them. Personally, I think this change is just it's like an Oracle buff with speed. It like makes no sense. Sure, it's gonna help, but it's not gonna help if no one makes them. So, like, if it reaches the late game, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I should make Mass Raven. No, I'm gonna make Mass BC. So, I don't really get the change. Problem in Raven is not the movement speed for sure.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
It's like thanks for the movement speed, but I don't think it's gonna change much.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I still haven't seen a Raven, but it must look funny with that movement speed since they have always been so super slow. How's the mule? The return rate multiplier? Like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know. I know it mines slower, right? Or something.
So it brings like about 100 minerals less than a previous mule. So it takes longer for the mule to get back to CC. Like it mines longer and then gets back. I personally haven't felt like too much of an impact as far as the builds go. Like, sure, you can notice it a little bit, but it's not like, oh, I can't do this build anymore because the mule is, a lot weaker now. So, I don't know. Not a huge impact, but I feel out of the 3 macro mechanics, removing turns economy compared to the other 2 races, quote unquote macro mechanics, because they're not same things, I think is not it's not equal nerf. Like I'll give an example. So if you nerf the chrono, let's say you remove the chrono boost, you remove the possible Protoss chrono boosting, early defenses against early pools or some cheeses. But overall, like that would be like the biggest impact. For example, or hitting times with upgrades. But for Terran, you nerf the mule, and then the economy is screwed for the whole game, pretty much. Same with Zerg. 1 larva less is going to affect the early game the most, because late game you can just mass, hatch queen. But having 1 larva less is like a production thing, not an economy thing. So I said this before. I said this, I think, in my blog that I wrote. You cannot treat larva inject, mule, and chrono boost the same. They're completely 3 different things. And what Blizzard calls like macro mechanics should not be treated same. Like they should be changed separately. Like Mule has nothing to do with inject, has nothing to do with chrono boost.
Okay,
So yeah.
so chrono boost also works on probes, right? So there is an economical impact, and you have to also, you know, since Protoss arguably is very timing dependent, you have to spend that chrono boost as well on other things and stuff. So I still agree, because I think where the impact might be biggest is when Protoss versus Terran or Zerg versus Terran and Zerg or Protoss are maxed out on workers, right? Because then each mule that you have more than the standard saturated or intended saturated worker count will bring 100 minerals less. So for late game, I think it's a considerable nerf, right? Since you don't have anything in the late game that is a mule for Zerg or Protoss, right? Considering you went from 22.5% to 15%, if I'm right, on Chrono Boost, that's quite huge. I mean, there's no changes to SCV production, right? So I can't say exactly how big of a nerf it is from the early mid to the early late game, the how unequal the macro mechanics nerfs are in terms of economy. But I think you're right, and it's definitely a nerf for the Terran late game, but I don't think it's that bad. And I think it can still be in a reasonable spot now, because, you know, with more expanding, Terran has more CCs now than they did in Harvest Swarm and stuff. Like there's arguments, but I mean it depends on whether
So what I'm saying is like, it's not like, okay, I'm not trying to say like, oh, Terran got screwed compared to the other races. I said the builds do not get impacted much, but like what I'm saying is the macro mechanics, as the Blizzard calls them, should not be treated the same. Like they did these changes because like, oh, we nerfed, you know, chrono boost to 15%. We're gonna nerf the mule by like, you know, around equal amount, and then we're gonna reduce the queen inject by 1. Like that's all I'm saying. They should not be treated the same. If you want to change the chrono boost, change it, and if you want to change the mule, change it. But don't try to scale them with the other two macro mechanics, because I think it makes no sense. They serve different purpose for every race. They should not be treated the same.
Do you agree, Theo?
I'm not sure, because I mean, I understand his point. Would you consider the change from the Legacy of the Void automated mule to then the Heart of the Swarm mule? Do you consider that a macro mechanical change equal to less or more lava, or like? But my point is, what would then do you think that Terran has a similar macro mechanical change you can do then?
So, like, I just don't think you can compare them. Like, for example, the auto larva inject, I was extremely against that. Auto larva inject is the same thing if I made 1 marine and then the next 6 marines queued themselves. That's what auto larva inject is. That's why I don't think they should be treated the same, because Zerg just makes units differently, like, and the Protoss and the Terran. So larva for the Zerg is the economy in the early game, but that lasts for very short compared to the mule and chrono boost, as far as economy goes. And then larva is just unit production, while mule is used for everything, like for, you know, production buildings, defenses, units, and so on. Same with chrono boost, which has an impact on, you know, how fast your tech is gonna hit.
Well, I don't think chrono boost necessarily is as big as for Terran, because the mule is based, like QXC talked about this a lot, that Terran, especially since you're forced to go by, right? You need the minerals much more than you need gas, and it's not like you have, you know, like a carrier that you can go into and you can like mule in gas or whatever. Like the only thing I think besides economy, I do think chrono boost matters for Protoss economy, like a reasonable amount. But of course, if you're going carriers, removing chrono boost and nerfing mules is obviously going to have an impact, because that means the time that it takes to build the carrier, you would probably have to either invest into more Stargates, which is quite risky, or you have to invest that money into more gateway units, which is not optimal if you want carriers, right? Okay, so I guess what you're saying is maybe the changes they made to the inject and mule and chrono boost now might be fine, but you don't like the idea that they think that they treat them equally. It shouldn't be forced. So you're saying what they have done might be fine, but they shouldn't, from patch to patch, to think that these 3 things are equal. You want them to understand that these mechanics are differently. They are different from race to race, right? And they have different impacts on the game. And I agree with that for sure. I agree. But with that being said, if you want to do, like, you can also make a case that you shouldn't touch the macro mechanics at all and should have just left them be for Heart of the, like they were in Heart of the Swarm, right? But if you were to make changes like slightly easier, I think it's very hard to avoid changing the mule as well. Like if you're making Chrono Boost weaker and kind of automated, you have inject with new queuing and less lava. I mean, I think it's hard to avoid changing the mule. But I understand that just like other things in the game, they should be treated, differently, the other mechanics of the game.
Yeah, so the problem with the mule, so for example, Larva Inject and Chrono Boost, as far as the legacy reduced mineral count on bases goes, didn't change at all. Like Larva Inject doesn't get affected by it. The Chrono Boost doesn't get affected by the fact that there's less minerals in the bases, but the mule does, because it mines out the base faster. So it just, one more thing, you shouldn't treat them the same, because they're just, not the same. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Like, I'm not saying the patch hit like a couple of days ago, so you can say like, oh, the Chrono Boost version now is better from the mule. I don't think the difference between the 3 Larva Inject, the mule as it is, and the Chrono Boost is too big. I don't mind them. I don't think they're a problem. Just think in future, if they decide to make changes like, oh, you can now drop a mule on gas, and Blizzard is like, oh, we should make it so you can inject your spawning pool. It's like, no, you shouldn't. They're not the same thing.
Right.
You don't need to compensate for the other races because you're changing one thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not everything has to be. Not everyone needs like a push. The Ghost snipe ability, is the delay a good improvement? BC? Have you sniped anything since?
No. So this is the thing. Against Protoss, there's nothing to snipe in the late game. Yes, you can snipe Templars. I would rather EMP instantly than have snipe and get shot by anything and interrupted. So I would rather always use EMP. Plus, there's rarely going to be just one high Templar. Maybe there's going to be a few units around it. EMP is just better. Other than high Templars, you don't want to snipe anything against Protoss because you can't. Like, there's no big units you can snipe. And then against Terran, you can't snipe anything because you can only snipe bio units, so it's completely worthless. And then against Zerg, I don't think there's a single player. Again, I didn't test this. I played maybe one game, so I didn't, play 20 games, 30 games with Ghost. So I might be wrong about TVZ, but I don't think there's a situation in the late game where in Legacy you're, doing 2 drops, the Zerg is doing a run by, and then the main army is engaging, and I'm gonna snipe the Ultras. Like, that's not gonna happen. I would rather have Liberators that are sieged up so you can use my, APM somewhere else.
Yeah, well, Liberator doesn't take a lot of APM, so...
Yes, so Legacy, the multitasking around the map is a lot higher than Heart of the Swarm for every race. So, clicking snipes, investing into ghosts that are extremely expensive in the late game, just to get, interrupted or killed or anything, I don't think it's worth it at all.
Right. Okay. I want to make a quick point about PvT with the snipe thing. I agree that currently the ability doesn't seem very useful. I just want to address if there's this need to give the ghost, an ability or the same ability as before that could deal with Templars as equally as you could in Heart of the Swarm, because Liberators, they one-shot Adepts, they one-shot Templars now, right? So this typical split strategy with mass Templars that you could argue was or wasn't needed, but probably is needed more in Legacy as a potential strategy now that you don't use Colossus, for example, right? In fights, charge slots, Adepts, or Immortals, they could quickly chase, Bioforces, and chasing Templars that you could have in the back would walk directly into a Liberator circle and, die. You could argue that you should be able to micro against that. You can argue that that's fine. I would probably argue both, but if there's 12 Liberators, which isn't all too uncommon in some games, especially with the new patch, even with the Adept nerf, but even with the need for the Liberator upgrade, I think it's very difficult for Protoss to make a lot of Templars now and just use them efficiently without the risk of them dying, and that's considering the lack of this ghost snipe ability. Something, and that's the main. I don't think we should go into the Beastie Cuties post, but there's a concept in there that I liked, that there should be a new ability, but perhaps not as primary as Snipe, but something more secondary ability, to cheap with a little efficiency, some sort. Because I think it's dangerous to give ghosts a straight up Templar counter ability similar to Heart of the Swarm, when I think the new Liberators actually pushes back Templars quite a lot. And I'm not sure if Huck, Morrow, or you, this, will you agree with this? But that's my feeling. I feel that Templars are reasonably threatened now, even when they're in, single and not, EMP is less efficient and stuff. So yeah.
Well, I think period Liberators should be nerfed even more. Mid-late game, I think they're way too strong, but that's totally separate. So
I'm not sure that Liberators are too strong. I think with the mechanical design that they have, very limited fire. It's not like it, it has similarities to a siege tank, but it's even more so limited to its range, right? When I say nerf Liberator, I'm not talking about the ground, and I'm assuming that's what you would like to see. I think it's a bit ridiculous that the Liberator basically counters, for example, Phoenix is better than the Thor. Again,
I don't care about that. I think it just does way too much ground damage. I think it's pretty ridiculous that it can be so cost efficient against almost every single ground unit. Period.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. If you think about, you would like Protoss to have a ground answer to Liberators, right? That's kind of what you're getting at. That you don't really.
But there's the problem is that there is no air unit counter besides Tempest, and Liberators are coming out so much quicker, and there's no easy transition to Tempest, especially in Legacy of the Void for Protoss.
Yeah, okay, I'm not too sure about that, and I think Phoenixes, they do.
Not really, because when you have a group of Marines below the Liberators, and Phoenixes don't outrange Marines, it's not really.
But they have range 7 with the upgrade, right?
It doesn't like when you think about it as a positional thing, you have Liberators, they're sieged up, and then you have Phoenixes. There's no way you can attack the Liberators without the Marines shooting the Phoenix. And it's not like the Phoenixes are like 3-shotting Liberators or something.
Yeah, okay, so the only point I wanted to make was, in a design perspective, you can argue Terran, when they go bio, they always support their forces with either Medevac or Liberator. I just wanted to say that it doesn't have to be bad that Protoss in TVP supports with Phoenixes. I think this adds.
But it's not really, you're not supporting. It's not like, okay, my army's going to fight your army, and then my units are going to support my army while your Liberators support yours. That it doesn't work like that, because the Liberators will kill that ground army 10 times faster than your Phoenixes are going to be able to kill the Liberators. So it doesn't really equate in any design perspective, as you would say.
Well, I don't have that same experience. That's all I can say. I think that Liberators, they, with the upgrade and stuff, I think they're difficult to get. Like, if you open Stargate as a Protoss, Oracle, Phoenix, whatever, right? Or you go perhaps Twilight upgrade, then Phoenix. I think you can get a reasonable amount quite fast.
I don't think so. I think right now PvT, the matchup's still very bad. It feels like either Protoss get a huge lead off of some timing or some cheese.
Right.
Obviously, it's not as bad as Warp Prism Adept, but if they don't get that lead and it goes into a normal macro game, basically Terran's going to win, 80% plus of the games.
I actually think I agree. I actually do think Terran now, post-patch, is favored. One, because they can do more things now. They don't have to blind counter Warp Prism. They can go for CC early, they can go for Medevacs or Widowmine 12 Solar and stuff, and Protoss has to prepare for more things. And the other thing is, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, Hawk. Do you think that the Twilight counts for a depth upgrade, because the attack speed thing is quite strong, right? Do you think that's something you need to rush? I mean,
I think at the highest level in PvT, Protosses for the most part don't use Adepts.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. You just go Blinkstalkers and into
Disruptor.
Okay.
Or you go straight air toss and try to transition quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I've not too much experience with that. Yeah, okay. I do agree that I actually think Terran might be too strong, but I'm not too sure yet. I'm just not sure that nerfing the Liberator is the thing. I think there's maybe a hole in the early game with Protoss, defending, and they have to watch the Adept upgrade and stuff, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I see mistakes in my own games at least, so yeah, that's basically it.
We lost Beastie for the time being. I'm sure he'll be back. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the overlay's a little bit messed up until he comes back. But yeah, I was gonna ask Beastie if he thinks Liberators are too strong, but okay. And we were gonna talk about his
Mara.
patch logs. Yeah, okay,
Mara.
Maro, it's your time to speak.
Do you
Oh,
think
sure.
Liberators are too strong? Let Maro talk.
Yeah, like I think I have my same opinion as I used to. Like I think they are like slightly too strong, but I think like when they are sieged up, like if you reach a Liberator's conditions, then they should absolutely destroy everything because their conditions are like so much harder to reach than like a siege tank, for example, or any other unit in the game. Like to have a Liberator set up in a fight is much harder than other units, so it needs to be like ridiculously cost effective because of that. But if like I think the damage could be nerfed slightly, and it would still like it would still be a very good unit, and you would still end up being very cost effective. It just seems a little bit weird to me that you're, for example, like one-shotting Hydras regardless of their upgrades, that you're like two-shotting Stalkers. It just feels maybe slightly too strong. But in general, like I don't look at Liberator and say that, oh, like this has to be changed, you know. It's not a very high priority. That's why I don't really think about it too much. I think the unit will get nerfed sooner or later, and I think it's the ground damage that it's gonna get nerfed. Talking about snipe, I don't know. Like I don't really like the new snipe, the way you need to channel it and so on. I like Harvest Swarm snipe more. I just wish they would make like the Harvest Swarm snipe more universal, so it could be used in against more types of units than outside of High Templars and Infestors. So that's what I think, yeah, about the snipe.
Okay. But and, you know, I agree with what you say, and the Liberator, man, it's weird, like fucking it kills anything. It's so ruthless. It's like.
Yeah, but I think it's so strange to nerf the Liberator, because if you nerf it by just 5 damage, then it's suddenly 3-shotting Stalkers. I mean, is that fine considering random damage from Marines and Marauders?
I think it's absolutely fine, because then you have like, okay, let's get +1 ship weapons, and now we're 2-shotting them.
I'm all ears for that. I think that's fine. And I think it's going to be a huge buff to Templars, because I'm extremely afraid of bringing more than 4 Templars to a fight, just because if I have charge slots, that's reasonable in the late game. You have your upgrades you want to scale into charge slots. Maybe you have some Adepts, but you're probably bringing on top of the Terran army, right? Like, Templars get shot quite easily, but if they're getting 2-shot, then maybe they could get a Storm off and other things, right? So I think that's fine, but I think it's dangerous to talk about the Liberators like this extremely overpowered unit that needs like -30 damage to I think 5, something that would increase the number of shots by standalone fire is fine. And I think if that's what Hawk was aiming for, then I totally agree as well.
Or like more cooldown, like whatever it is. I'm pretty sure that the damage is gonna get nerfed. Like you have to keep in mind like that. You can reactor out this unit, unlike the siege tank, so you can get.
But you made a good point about the siege tank. When you have your army and you're moving out, sure, you made a lot of points about tank. You send out a marine so that you get vision in front of your army, right? And you have siege tanks as a positional unit. You want to be sieged up before a fight. Pretty standard, maybe, right? The problem is just the difference between a siege tank and a Liberator is. Liberators have bioforces also with medevacs, and especially versus Protoss, you want to kite these guys a lot, right? The siege tank, you click siege, and the tanks will start firing, and I guess in some situations you would target fire, and others you don't really care. The Liberators, on the other hand, I suppose you just spam the circles if it's extremely stressful, but it does take more clicking and some time to set up Liberators, and at the same time you want to dodge Storm and start kiting and stuff like that. So I think you made a good point that when Liberators are not sieged, and we've talked about this before, when Liberators are not sieged, the Bioforce is walking in a clump, the Terran is just leaving his base, and boom, there's a huge charge slot Storm Force engaging. That's like when I think Protoss is favored, and at the same time, if Liberators are sieged up, they shred everything, right? And I totally agree with that, exactly. And especially if it's ground. Is that fine? I mean, I have my issues with these. I think this is actually good, because it's not like static. It's not like the siege tank, you put them on a high ground, and it can become camping, right? Liberators, they're actually very positionally oriented in the way that they're air units, so you travel around with them on the map. The only problem is just that it seems a bit all or nothing with having vision above with your opponent's army. But I suppose with practice and people get better at it, then I think it's fine, and it's not something I would complain about now. But yeah, that's another point in which why it's difficult to perceive the Liberators as broken as it is.
Personally, I love the way it works. Like,
Yeah.
it reminds me so much of Brood War. The way you're moving across the map, like you're looking around for Protoss counterattacks, and like if you siege up that sweet spot, then it's like you push closer and closer and closer, like slow pushing with the Liberators. And then if Protoss just attacks like right into you, you just fucking destroy him, because you reach like your win condition. But if you're playing a very good Protoss, he's gonna like fake attack into you. You're gonna siege up your Liberators. He runs away. Like maybe you move across with your units. He goes in with his Blink Stalkers, kills the Liberator.
Exactly.
You have to siege up again, and it just keeps going like that. So it's like it creates so much like great gameplay. It's not just a clash of two armies, because if it is a clash of these two armies, then one is just bluntly stronger than the other, and then the other army has to work around that. So I think just the design of the Liberator is great, but if it's too strong, it's like I'm not really seeing it in my games so far. If I'm Terran or Protoss, I'm saying like it's slightly too strong, but I don't think it's gonna change. Like they're not gonna change the Liberator, so Protoss suddenly wins a fight if the Liberators are attacking the Protoss, because that would just mean the Liberator is pretty useless if it doesn't win a fight like that.
Wait, so you actually like the design?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Because like, like David Kim, he invented the Liberators because noobs couldn't beat mutas, right? Like like Zerg players, or Terran players, they struggle with mutas, and he would always disregard like the early game. Fucking Zerg gets super ahead, and then they pull a White special tactics, go 6 bases, fucking mutas until the end of the night or whatever, and they would mass mutas, and the Terran with the Tors would not be able to beat the mutas, and then David scratched his head and he's like, oh well, I guess I need to help the Terrans. And then he invented the Liberator, and now the Liberator is like, it's got such a much different role. It's like mech into Liberators, and then Zerg and Protoss scratch their heads to try to get around the siege circle to beat the Liberator. You think that's a good design? I
mean the design is like, it's like a siege tank pretty much, if you're using it the way I'm talking about. Like if you're playing against Protoss, it's gonna be used like a siege tank. That's slightly more conditional, and also you have the option of you can actually go behind the mineral line and siege it up, and use it as a harassment. Like you never grab some siege tanks and go harass.
I get what Maro's saying. Basically, in the way it worked in Brood War was like, if you're fighting against a mech army as Protoss and you let them push across the map and set up at your choke, once they set up at that choke, it's going to be really hard to beat the army. But if you engage them open map when they're not set up, then most likely you're going to crush them. So they slowly and carefully have to like scout ahead, position, make sure you're not countering attacking, and then kind of like just work across the map.
Right.
So you have to engage them. But if they engage, if they do set up, then by all rights they should beat your army, is basically what Mario was saying. Which I agree. And I agree that adding one more shot to every unit, so High Templars taking 2 shots without an upgrade, Stalkers taking 3 without an upgrade, etc., would be a very good change. Or, of course, slowing the attack speed.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point and a very good concept for nerfing, actually, with the Liberator. And I think for PvP at least, something similar should be looked at with the plus 55 shields, because I think that the one-shotting potential of basically every single important, or at least amassed Protoss unit in that matchup is a bit too strong. And if you did something similar to the Disruptor, you simply remove the plus 55 shields damage, you wouldn't one-shot. But likewise with the Liberator, you would do, random damage with other units, so the one-shotting would still exist quite a lot. So I think that's a really good way to do it.
Okay, interesting. I mean, like Mo, like you obviously played the better game. I played Warcraft 3, so it's just when I have to deal with something like a Liberator and fucking Stalkers can't fucking reach it, and it's in the back of my mineral line or some fucking dicking shit like this. Like it makes me mad.
I
so-
mean, yeah, it's like it's frustrating, but
Yes.
you just like you need to just get the tool. Like now, Protoss needs a Stargate every game. That's just something you need. Otherwise, you die to like a Liberator, or he switches up around your mineral line. You have to build a Stargate, wait for fucking Phoenix or Void Rains, like no mining for 2 minutes. But that's just part of the game that you need to get
and I think that's
Stargates now
okay. Like
if they get
Terran,
Liberators.
yeah.
I think it's just a thing that you need to get used to like if you're fighting heads up with a Terran, like you're gonna have a hard time, much harder than before. But now Protoss has these new tools like a stronger War Prism, stronger gateway units. Like you can do stuff that Zerg do, which is counterattacking, flanking, and things like that. Like the Protoss army against the Terran army, it operates differently from Heart of the Swarm. And that's what both Terran players and Protoss players need to get used to. Like as a Terran player, I find it extremely frustrating with the sellout run bys, like Adept mineralized, crazy War Prism, fucking 50 energy recall. Like these things are all frustrating to me. But I know as a Terran, like if I have Liberators and we fight straight up, then suddenly like I'm the new guy with the death ball and not him anymore. But it's just kind of role reversal in that way. But I think overall the game is gonna play out a lot better.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't think Morrow meant when there's a siege, with units and they push across the map and he gets to the choke or whatever with Liberators. I don't think the sentiment is that Terrans are just completely destroy. Like, I think Protoss can do something. Maybe Protoss sets up a trap, like, calculates the armor movement or something, right? But in general, Terran should be favored, right? I don't think
exactly.
the idea is that Protoss should just get absolutely destroyed. So yeah, I'm not, it's just... that was like the point. We don't want the Liberator to just be completely shredding everything if it sieges up, but it should be favored, right? That's like the thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I look at with the middle line harasser stuff, like Terran makes a starboard every single game. I don't mind that Protoss has to make a Stargate every single. Like I play ground in PvT. I still think it's interesting to have more tech choices and being able to open Phoenix if there's an early Liberator threat. It's a huge investment, 100 and 150 resource investment and stuff. So I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it. I personally have preferred playing Phoenixes because they also help a lot versus Widow Mines when I go Adepts and Charge-Slots and stuff, which I think is cool. But if you want to go ground, then sure, I think that's fine. Blinkstalker Disruptor, for example. But then I would be extremely aggressive and into the Terran face if they go Liberators. And for as much as possible, keep them from getting to the other side of the map. Whereas I feel with Phoenixes, I can battle them a bit more heads up. That's my opinion, at least. With Storm and Charge.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've tried being in their face, man. If they have like 2 of them out, they just lock down like whatever place and.
Yeah, you don't attack, right? You just make sure he doesn't lock up at your third base, right? You'll find that he locks up at his own third, right? That's like the idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like the idea.
Alright, we're gonna wait for Beastie to hopefully come back to talk about his Facebook post. In the meantime, we're gonna be talking about the GSL finals. Did you guys stay up to watch the GSL final, by the way?
Nope.
Nope.
When's the last time you guys stayed up for the GSL finals?
Never.
I don't know. 2010.
Not for a long time ago.
Not this year?
Nope.
Alright, well I was...
It just loses its fucking hype. Like, this is the same topic we always talk about. Like, there's so many Korean games to watch. It's just, there's no hype. Like, I'll watch the VOD, maybe. Like, if it's really good games or there's a specific game or I need to, like, focus on... But now with Legacy out and everything, it's just like...
Right.
Yeah.
Don't really care that much, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I was getting pretty turned, and so I stayed up for it. What?
I remember that night.
Do you want me to show the people
Show the people what?
a GIF?
I think you want to show people a gift.
That's not what I said at all. That's not.
That
what I
isn't
said at
what
all.
you said, but that's what it is. I was just referring to you because you messaged me.
I did message you.
Yeah. And then you were like, do you want me to show something? No, I don't. If you want to, man. It seems like that's what you want to do.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
but anyway, I was getting pretty turned.
Did you show them?
Yes, I'm showing them right now. I'm like this is Black Destro in a club. I don't know why I have to be black to dance, but Daddy Destro getting it on. with that wedding outfit as well. But anyway, I stayed up. I was a little bit disappointed. Like, it was really tense. It was 2-2, and then Bjol kind of just shit the bed on Coda. It was a macro game, a very long macro mech game, and Bjol was just throwing every single gas unit he could find. Like, he was just wasting his gas, not being cost effective, and then he lost that, and then he lost the last game pretty quickly. And then
did the innovation play mech every game? Oh, sorry.
none in the last game. I know he won with mech on Coda, and I can't remember before that, but it was pretty epic before that, but I just can't remember it. Anyway, so Innovation ended up winning 4-2 versus Bjol. Bjol, that's his second place this year. He finished second.
We're all hoping. So let's give a round of applause for Bjol.
Very
Love
impressive.
those tears. Love those tears.
He actually didn't cry. I got a lot of eats.
We need like someone to go up to him after he loses now, because he's cried too much and he's getting used to losing. So we just need someone to go up to him when he loses and be like, "You're a fucking failure. Your family hates you." Because we need those tears, man. I can't fap without those tears.
Yo, that's what I said on Twitter, and I got so much hate. I'm like, I just want him to cry, guys. Like, I didn't stay up. I haven't stayed up for GSL in this long. Just
you're like drunk, slowly stroking it, and then you're like, "Where are the tears?" And then you're like, Twitter.
Yo,
I
you
can't
know,
do it
like,
without the tears.
I linked the stream to my friend who hasn't watched in 5 years, and I'm like, he's cried twice by now. Every time he finishes a second, just stay on the stream. It might happen. No, but like, the reason I wanted him to cry so much was because when I saw him cry for GSL Season 2, I actually cried with him. Like, it's so nice to see someone that have so much passion and that, like,
You
tried
legit
this.
cried.
Yes, I was. It was
Really?
like, you know, like the final was in during Toronto, so I was in my like I was staying at a hostel, so it was like a room with 6 people with 3 bunk beds, and it was 4 a.m. I was on my phone, I was watching the highlight, and I saw him cry, and I started crying alone in my bed with 5 other people in the room.
Were you on your period or something?
Dude, it was just
What? That's an honest question.
You
Like,
don't- but-
if you have that time of the month, you're very emotional. It just kind of happens.
No, it wasn't.
Sure?
I am sure. Listen, it was
Do
just.
you like mark on your calendar when your period is? Because I've dated a lot of girls and then they mark that shit down. Yeah, they crayon on red like that week so they know.
No,
Like, are your periods regular? Because that could be a problem too, where you get like emotional
Every
at different
other day.
times in the month.
Listen, it wasn't like that at all. It's just that seeing so much passion, seeing someone try his hardest and come so close and fail, and still like he still cares so much even after he loses, and see him cry like that. It was a lot for me. It was a moment, like, it touched my heart, right? And so I wanted to see that again. I wanted to be able to experience that moment again. I wanted to be able to feel the feels that he was feeling. Sadly for all of us, he didn't cry at all. He was smiling after when they gave him the second place trophy. So maybe that's a good thing for him, you know, going into BlizzCon. He's finally managed to not cry after losing. Maybe he's gonna win BlizzCon and do it all, and that would be an even better story, right? But actually
second place would still be the best story.
all right, but so anyway, we now have the WCS final playoff, because I think it was yesterday morning. Fantasy versus Hyun played the tiebreaker match. Fantasy ended up winning. Rip Hyun, rip. You know, Hyun made a lot of waves this year. He beat Huck at the DreamHack, but it wasn't enough to get into BlizzCon. It wasn't. So let's take a look at the bracket. Obviously, we're not gonna like do predictions or whatever, but Hero Fantasy, Bjol Classic, Innovation Zest, Lilbo Life, Rain Polt, Parting SOS, Hydra Dream, Maru Rogue. So a nice race distribution: 7 Protoss, 5 Terran, 4 Zergs. And so for Biol to win it all would have to beat a lot of impressive players. He's got a tough bracket. Also, Lilbo has a tough bracket. I actually asked Lilbo today if he was going to Korea. He told me he wasn't. I don't know if he was trolling me. That suck. You know, P. Drogo is going to the MVP house, right?
Maybe he watched our Remax episode and he heard our comments about it and he said, you know what, these guys, they're smart. They know what they're talking about. Maybe I shouldn't go.
That would be so fucking sad.
I
Little Bug cancel
maybe-
in the last minute, like,
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna lose.
Well, I know he's going to Netherlands to play a show match versus Thermal, but you know, T. Drogo is going to the MVP team house to play Legacy of the Void for a month. Harstem is at the Esbenu house for 2 months.
I don't think it's worth it for a month.
You don't think it's?
I feel like you need to be there, like at least I would say 3 months, 2 months maybe, but I feel like a month for like all the travel, getting used to it. Like for me, it takes like maybe a week to feel comfortable at like a new house, new surroundings, food,
You're like a
sleep
dog, eh?
schedule, everything. Yeah, it's just you're not really in your groove, and then you kind of get settled, and then you're used to the routine and everything, and then you like really start concentrating on playing. I feel like a month isn't that long. I feel like 2 or 3 months. I want to say 3 months at least, and it would be worth it. Especially since there's a lot of downtime now. Like there's not a lot of tournaments. You're not having to like be back to play for like WCS on your region server. It just I don't see why you wouldn't make the most of it. You know, that expensive flight even. I would be staying more than 1 month.
Well,
in my opinion.
I mean, T. Drogo's on My Insanity, so it's nice that they covered that for him.
Still think 1 month isn't worth it.
Yeah. Oh, what
Maybe
about
we'll get
Arstem
him
in
to-
2 months?
Or cancel
think
his
it,
flight,
I
too.
think it can be worth it early, like very